way loud now. Okay, perfect. More inks for Robert Norton. That's right. Absolutely. How you doing this morning? It's morning for me, barely. Sleeping in because of the snow. Well, hey, that's the upside to the snow. You can just declare the day off, and all right, I'm not messing with any of that today because of the snow. This is Clip Studio Paint that I'm using, yeah. This brush that I'm using at the moment is one that I created. Yeah, not super fancy actually, because all I did really was take one of Clip Studio's stock brushes. I took their rough brush and just modified it based upon an interview that I read years and years ago with Klaus Jan talking about his brushes and what he was using when he was on Daredevil. And I just kind of played around with it until it gave me, until I could get results like that, something like that out of it. Hey Mel, what's going on, man? Drinking some Rob Norton this morning. Barely morning. Oh. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I don't like this straight line, though. Oh, and I bit into that. I don't like that either. How about that? Nope, making it worse. Don't like it. I don't really like to sit there and do microsurgery like that, but sometimes it bugs me enough. Hey, Ginger Bear, what's going on, buddy? And Danny Cruz. How are you doing, sir? Nice to see you here. Those of you that don't know, that don't follow Danny Cruz's stuff, you should. You guys are badass. Hey, what's going on, Rob? Wow, all kinds of people like kind of jumped in and went, "Hey, it's Chuck. Let's go say hi." Right on. Good to see everybody. Mm, I really wasn't sure what I would get this time of day. I'm like, well, whatever. I'm inking. Why not? Somebody might be interested. Gonna get up real close on the eyeball. I do zoom in quite a bit on faces and hands. Usually I work at about here, but for faces I will pull in because I was taught that that's what everybody's eye goes to first, faces and hands. So I always try to go a little tighter on those when necessary, when I can, you know. It always just I was taught that it was necessary. You should. Which back in the old days, I got an old assistant to tell you tales of my magnifying lamp. Um, Crazy amounts of detail that I would get working under a magnifying glass. Pretty nuts. Nope, not liking that. Yeah, the magnifying lens with the light built on. That was the one. And we get this really, really, really teeny tiny detailed stuff that would never print. And I just because I could get it. And it was nuts. It was never going to print. Nobody was ever going to see it. It all was just going to fade to a gray smudge. And it did. Absolutely did. Well, and I try not to be one of those guys that zooms in all the time in Clip Studio Paint. Like I'll come in, like I said, for faces and hands, but most of the time I have a set. I just set my. I have a hotkey that zooms it automatically to print size. Like you go up here to view, and you can go to print size right there. I have a hotkey set for it because I don't print stuff on the fly, so there's no reason Control P can't zoom it to print size. And by doing all the work at print size, I don't know if that translates exactly in Clip Studio Paint, if that's how it's supposed to work. But anyway, since I always work at that size consistently, I don't get too much in the way of parts that look mega detailed as opposed to parts that don't. One of my secrets to my workflow, it does slow me down, but I do a lot with the folders and with having different parts on different layers and things like that. That way I can compartmentalize or shut on and off elements. Because a lot of times I'll try stuff that's experimental that's not necessarily there on the page. But hey, it's digital, so I can just put it on another layer and try something, and nobody's going to complain. And sometimes, very often, I do. And the other thing is too is when you do things like put hair on a different layer, I can completely do it with complete abandon of anything happening to the face. Face is on another layer. I don't have to worry about it. Let's bump up one. I also have a hotkey set up in Clip Studio Paint so that I can flip it back and forth. Sometimes the line you want to make doesn't work real well one way, and you can flip it to the other and find an easier way to put it down. Um, Mel, it would really be hard to say. I think, I did a lot of stuff for really small indie companies. The last stuff you're probably going to be able to find is CrossGen. I did the Silken Ghost miniseries over there. Of course, that was quite a while ago. And then after that, it was stuff for Transformers Fan Club and storyboard cleanup on the Mummy animated series with Rick Hoberg. And then I kind of quit for about a decade. Like, I'm not making any money at this, and I didn't see any sense in pursuing it, and I really tried to just sort of put it down and walk away. And then just a few years ago, I discovered Clip Studio Paint had done a lot, and somebody had gifted me one of the old-fashioned knockoff Wacom tablets where you draw down on your desk, but you look up at your monitor. They gave me one of those to fart around with, and I started farting around with that with Clip Studio Paint around, I don't know, 6, 8 years ago, something like that. I was using Clip Studio Paint before Jimmy Reyes started doing it on his channel. I can tell you that because I was the one that introduced him to the program. I just gotten turned on to it, was really excited, and was talking with Jimmy and was like, "Dude, you got to check this out." So many elements separated into different folders. Well, most of the time it's not that difficult. I just come up with a shorthand name for each character. I don't necessarily read the script because I'm just inking it. Yeah, it's not real important a lot of times that I read the script. I just kind of stick to what's there in general and trying to prove upon what's there in pencil if I feel the need to embellish something, and kind of leave it at that. Storytelling and that kind of thing is really more up to Rob. But like I'll play with this, like like this background. He's got this here for a solid black. Well, that's an opportunity for me to play. Maybe it's solid black, maybe it's not. Unless I can see explicitly where they're hunting around, and I can tell like the night the lights have down and it's dark, and there's a storytelling reason why it has to be black back there. Well, then that's sort of at Inker's discretion. Well, I was always told, usually, and for the most part, in my experience, pencilers don't really mind if you play around with that sort of stuff. And Rob, in particular, is very much, dude, you do what you want to do. I'm fine with whatever you have for it. I actually have something kind of like that, the mesh hatching for the backgrounds that I do. Yeah, in fact, we'll do that just because you suggested it, and we're here on the stream right now. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna create a new layer, stick that into a folder. Label it background. Yeah, yeah, okay. Um, and in Clip Studio Paint, that's usually not real difficult to do something like that because you got this lasso fill tool, and her hair is going to be on a different layer anyway, so I can do a little sloppy. Or the ponytails are going to be on another layer. For a little bit of that. I can always go in and clean this up a little later. But because you suggest it, usually what I do in Clip is because I can do a layer above this, and all it affects is this black layer. So usually I'll put down the black layer first because I like to play with I like to play this with the dot patterns. Yeah, exactly like a masking layer. It's a clipping layer, actually, is what they call it in Clip Studio Paint. And I just clip this to the layer below and turn it into. Let's see. I'll go with just. Let me go with a real large dot pattern in white. And then I'll do some Liefeld sort of things over the top of it. I think I'll try. Um, we need bigger dots. I like that real graphic kind of treatment to it. That pop art kind of feel, I guess you'd call it. I could do something like that. I was thinking, or we could go with the Liefeld crosses idea. Um, I got something for that, as a matter of fact, where I don't even make that pattern anymore. And then as soon as I say that, I can't find it. And everybody wants to watch me like look for that shit. Right there it is. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. Too big. Yeah. See, Liefeld would do the great big effects like that. That's what I'm thinking. Something like that. See, and I can turn it into tone after this if I wanted to. You can go ahead and turn it into tone and then take the dots per square inch way down. But yeah, you can play with all kinds of effects with it. I like the Liefeld suggestion though. I'm gonna go with that. I'm thinking I just kind of like that, and most of it would be covered by balloons, things like that. Usually, anyway. Um, but anyway, back to hair. Hey, thanks, man. I think Rob's gonna be pretty happy with it too. He's usually happy with what I'm doing. I don't hear too many notes. It's just like, yeah, cool. That's the kind of stuff a lot of. See, and I do a lot of that stuff with the clipping layer. Helps you keep stuff organized. You can get sit there and touch it up to where it covers just that area that you want. Garish clashing colors for placeholders. Probably not a bad idea. Okay, let's make sure this sucker's doing what I want it to do. I find the more that I leave for later, the worse off it is. Like if I get into too many colors, things like this, like every once in a while I have to just kind of come through and flatten everything out, you know? Because if I don't, it just gets into too much. Really kind of surprised we got as many people stopping in as we did this time of day. Like usually, I don't know. I just figured that the times that people are going to watch at the same times that people are going to watch TV, prime time. Mm, okay, and I think I'm going to do. Oops, I stuck that on the wrong layer. See what I was talking about? Oh well. You know what? Give a crap. I'm going to use all that for sure now because, like I talked about, sometimes I just come in and flatten the whole damn thing out. Screw it. I don't care. Nobody's watching. I tell you what, working with Rob has been a real experience in terms of learning my software. I thought I knew Clip Studio Paint pretty well before I started actually putting it through paces. I don't know what the point was of what working with Rob was to begin with anyway. Like, testing this for quite a while. Let's see if it actually does the gig or not. You know. You know. Oh, I do delete my. I keep my undo handy. I have deleted layers before, and it's a tragedy when you do. But I try not to. I try to really keep track. The nice thing about it too is I've got a computer that's got a lot of RAM to it, so I can do tons and tons and tons of layers, and I can do tons and tons and tons of undos. And as I've said to people many, many times before, I take full advantage of undo and the eraser tool and all those nice things. What would be the point of working digitally if you didn't make use of those advantages? I never understood that. I mean, it's cool that it can do the same thing that it does on paper. It is very cool that it will do that, but there's no reason to restrict yourself to that. Why? I always wanted to play with zipatones and dot layers and stuff like that. And uh, Wildstorm, they wouldn't let you do that because it was still the old fashioned zipatone where you stick it down and stuff. And I guess when you scan that stuff, it causes moire patterns and all kinds of hassles and nightmares. So they would say, well, just let us know what effect you want, and then we'll get with the colorist and we'll get it in. And I'm like, sounds like too many chefs in the kitchen and too much delay between idea and execution for my taste. So I didn't really mess with it too much after that. I was just like, all right, well, I got enough to do without that. But once I got into digital, I was like, well, there's no reason why that should cause mores in the scan because it's all happening in the digital realm anyway. It should work, give or take, the way it looks on the screen. And so far, in my experience, I've had pretty good luck. The stuff that I've done with Rob has printed the way I've intended for it to print, give or take, and the gray tones are working and all that stuff. Knock on wood. The image guys were early adopters of computer coloring and effects. Yeah, just because they wanted to be a cut above what Marvel was doing, and they, found a way to make that happen. At least that's my understanding. I wasn't standing near anything before I showed up. I already had that stuff well in place. What the heck is this, Rob? It's the edge of his mask. Okay. Making sure before I make a commitment. Ah, pretty much. So yeah, I use kind of a mixture of hybrid of techniques based in tradition but not restricted to it, I guess would be the best way to encapsulate it. Well, I guess I did do a lot of Nielsen influence. So when you say that you see some of that sneaking in, that means I'm doing what I want to do. Thank you for saying so. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, like I said, he definitely is an influence. Uh, he and John Byrne both. You know, I'm generally kind of thinking through a John Byrne kind of whenever I'm drawing. Uh, you know, we're trying to. We're doing it badly, but hopefully I've picked up enough tricks to not make it suck so bad. Kind of making him look a little old. Following the pencils a little closely here. It's okay. In a way, I understand what you're saying. That you like Burns' inks over himself more than Terry Austin. I like certainly periods of Burns' inks over himself better than I like Terry Austin's. I'll agree with you there. I don't like all of Burns' inks necessarily that he's done over himself, but there are certainly periods of it where I am a big, big fan. Pretty much everything that he did in the Fantastic Four, I'm real good with. Um, I felt his strongest inking was after that, though, when he got into the his DC era. Jerry Ordway on Byrne. Oh, you don't get any better than that, do you? That's like that's like the love letter of Wally Wood over Jack Kirby all over again, kind of. Just the next evolution of both guys. Yeah, I'm a big, big fan of Ordway in general, and particularly what he did on Byrne. He took some of that Byrne stuff with him too. He went off to do Crisis and took some of it over there with him. And I saw some stuff that he drew like an Infinity Incorporated annual, I think, or something like that, where he was taking some bits and pieces of Byrne. Good for you. I would too, man. Yeah, I think Byrne would probably agree with you on that. That he liked Ordway on that guy on him too. Oh yeah, he was using that craft tint duo shade stuff so much on the Batman adaptation. It's gorgeous too. I remember staring at that over and over and over at the time. I've thought about getting that just to look at that original artwork. I heard uh, uh, my understanding was it was going to be Burn. That's why we were waiting, kind of, because I mean you could farm it out to a bunch of inkers. Yeah, there was some grease pencil or crayon of some sort going on there. I remember a lot of. I think that was Ordway's attempt to make the artwork kind of bulletproof. You really can't get roughed up too bad by a colorist when pull out that grease pencil and go after it because shit, I'm working on the wrong fucking folder. Damn it. Excuse my French. How far do I gotta go back? Just that far. All right, good. Good. Now let's go back up here to the Ninja folder and do work on the Ninja folder on the Ninja folder. Gotta keep these damn things straight. Yeah, I don't delete layers by accident, but I do a lot of that backing up shit. It's like, damn it, screwed it up. My understanding, actually, and it could be incorrect entirely, is my understanding is that it's been sitting on that part's true. It's been sitting on Burns' blog for years. I wouldn't say it's been there for a decade. I don't know. Maybe it has been a decade by now. But my understanding was is that Byrne was approached and they couldn't come to a deal for whatever reason. Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speculate and put any words in Byrne's mouth or anything because he has a history of really not liking that. So I'm not going to step on that landmine. I don't know what fell apart, but my understanding was just that he was approached and made an offer, and they couldn't come to an agreement for whatever reason. So maybe things were friendlier with IDW. Would not surprise me. Scott Doonbeer's a great guy, and he is known for working with people sometimes that other people can't seem to get along with well enough to make it happen. Yeah. Not saying that's Byrne, but I don't think it would be out of the way to say that's his reputation. Right. The Fantastic Four book by Alex Ross wasn't published by Marvel. Too bad Marvel won't give me any characters to play with. But they don't know me. They're not going to give me their stuff. Hey, thanks, Mel. Cool. Hey, I think I saw that. I think I saw that. You posted on Instagram or you posted a layout for it or something. Anyway, have a good stream, man. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, and that was my understanding too. Is that it was the best way for Ross to get paid what he's worth. Uh, you know, without without Marvel having to pony up for it, because they just aren't gonna pay you that. Sorry, we're just not gonna. God forbid we should ever pay anybody for artwork ever again. We might create another image. We're not going to treat our artists any better or anything like that, or pay any better royalties worth of shit. So all the all the conditions that made everybody frustrated enough to go over and start Image to begin with are still present very much. So they know, like, don't build anybody up, man, because they'll turn. They got no love for you after a point, man. And I don't blame anybody for turning away from Marvel. I didn't mess with it. I would have, mind you, but it just didn't seem like they were dying to have me, and I wasn't. Like, man, I'm not going to be sending samples around and pounding the pavement and doing that crap. Like, that's, at some point you're supposed to be in the industry and not have. You think Scott Williams is sending out fucking samples? Come on. Not saying that I'm him, but at a certain point, it's like hard to find what I do. What are you talking about? At that time, anyway. I just got tired of it. I'm tired of pounding the pavement. It wasn't worth it. You'd pound the pavement like that, and then you did get a gig, and they'd stiff you. Like, great. Yeah, that's not a new move. The whole thing of going for cheaper talent over to Spain to get down to more Jorge Jimenez. During the 70s, they'd go to the Philippines and do the same shit. It was exactly the same move. So that doesn't shock me. They've gone to the Brazilians before as well. They have no problem undercutting U.S. talent if they can get foreign talent that suits them for cheaper. And I get that. I get that. Hey, there were some great artists that came out of the Philippines. I'm really glad they went over and got. Like, man, if you hadn't had the Filipino invasion of the 70s, we wouldn't have gotten Tony De Zuniga or Rudy Nebres or friggin' Alex Nino. Like, holy shit. I can't imagine what the 70s would have been like without the Filipino influence on American comics. It was just off the chain. And they were doing some great, great, great work overall. Like, and, you know, I don't know how it sold, but it was nice. It sure was pretty. Oh, it's flipped. Sorry. That's getting where we're trying to go. How about that background? How's that working? Mm, Have I got something up here? No. So maybe it's just this. Oh, cool. So I can go with that or I can go with that. Back up, look at the whole page. I'm thinking I'm going to go. It's a Liefeld parody. I'm gonna go with the Liefeld background. I think. Take a look so you guys can see uh, the whole deal. That's what we're trying to get to. So, I got most of the panel in here. I hope there won't be a Moria effect with tiny tones. I tend not to use. It's going to be important. There might be Moria effects, but this is just going to be in the background. The reason why there isn't anything going on here, figures right there. Okay. So hopefully by the time it's all worked out at print size, that's what it's supposed to look like. And that's what I always work at. And that last book with Rob, that's what I did then. And it all seemed to print fine. So I've just kind of stuck with that. We'll see. Maybe there will be a more tone. It's why, like most of the time, most of the tones you'll see me use on people and stuff, I'll stick with lines rather than dots because the lines I know how that's going to print. Although I got a pretty good idea that's going to print just about like what you see there. I worked on it at that size, so. And I don't really see that causing a moray at any point, no matter how far we zoom out. But yeah, I got a panel done while I was sitting here hanging out with you guys. I'm going to drop the blacks on the Ninja's hood here, but hey, thanks, Roland. Appreciate it. I think my favorite thing about Clip Studio Paint is the ability to work with white over black without any restriction. I was always told there was this dream white stuff that you would hear about when you got in the industry that would paint over your stuff and be completely opaque, and then you could take a pen or a brush right back over it, no fuss, no muss. Wait, there's none there. As though nothing had ever happened. Okay? And I've never, ever found that. I believe that is a myth. I don't know. Either that or it's one of those things like brushes used to be better, from what I hear from everybody. Okay, I think that panel is just about. There we go. I have heard um, stories about the old Pro White where you could basically layer it over and over and over and over again. Now, maybe that's just, you know, I don't know. I've never seen it, but I'm told that at one point it is possible. And I can see where that might be the case because it's, they've messed with a lot of stuff because of environmental rules and bans for like you used to be able to get better brushes, but now you can't buy Sable brushes here. So, well, I'll tell you if I get a lead on anything, I won't keep it a secret. I will share it with the world and be like, "This is the stuff right here, everybody. This is the holy grail of whiteout. Don't sleep on it." Like any of that in there. I don't like that. Touch it right there. This is where I start getting picky and just. Mm. Anyway, um, a lot of the tone sheets are illegal because of cancerous or environmental harm. See, yeah, it's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Because of cancerous chemicals and things like that, they got to change the materials in the paint. You can't get to the good stuff like you used to. Anyway, I'm gonna close out this stream for now. I've been streaming for about an hour, so I'm gonna shut it down for the moment and grab a little lunch. So I appreciate everybody coming out to watch. Um, Thanks for coming out. I'll try and do it again tomorrow. All right. See you guys later. Bye.